live. Okay, so welcome and gotta love it. Lots of noise around. So I don't see what's going on. Okay, I don't know if it's live or not. This is all kinds of fun. So ran tests, wanted to see what I could do, and hopefully this is going. I'm gonna check this right here. And we will see if this is working. I don't know. Can't tell. Hopefully it is. I guess so. Well, nobody's on, so I don't care. All right. So, the big idea. What's going to happen that's going to be so great for HVAC, plumbing, appliance repair, and everything? Okay. There's a lot of different stuff going on, and I'll get into that, but I'm going to start off with a caveat to say I want to get rid of all the fucktards. I am. And I'm going to do it real simply. I'm going to explain that if you work in HVAC, plumbing, any one number of the tech fields, or excuse me, the trade fields that are out there, whether it's welding or whatever, not one of those jobs requires you to have much more than an 85 for an IQ. Now, if that is butthurt your feelings, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not going to fucking sugarcoat shit for you. That's the way it is. Go ahead and leave your negative feedback and move on. You're not up for this, okay? You're not going to be able to deal with it. Number two, if you heard that and then you automatically assumed I was saying that every single plumber and HVAC and everybody else out there only has an IQ of 85, well then guess what? You too can get the fuck out because you're a dumbass. Didn't say it. It's like sitting there and saying I like apples and then everybody's screaming, oh, Peter hates oranges. Yeah, go. Get the fuck out. I don't need to deal with a bunch of dumbass tarts. And the simple fact of the matter is that a lot of the jobs out there don't really require as much as people think they do. I'm sorry, but if you're doing these jobs, just driving to the store, do you really think it takes much more than an 85 IQ to do driving? I've driven to the store, gotten there and gone, shit, did I even stop for stoplights? You do it. It takes a skill. It takes something that you have to learn, but it becomes muscle memory. It becomes some mundane thing that you do, okay? And so if you're here to hear about this big idea, you need to be the kind of person who realizes that, yeah, you're not using all of your brain right now. And it doesn't take a lot of brain to do more. It doesn't. So I'm hopefully going to be bringing you some ideas on how to innovate within all of these fields. And to be honest, it's headed that way. It is. It's taking a really fucking long time to get there because honestly, it should have been there 10 years ago. I'm sitting here watching this shit and I cannot believe it hasn't existed. It's like, why the fuck isn't it there? Why haven't they done this? I'm going to start off with some simple stuff. The first thing that you need to do in order to actually innovate all of this stuff is you guys actually need to have standards. I know you guys have the IRC and the IVC, but fuck that shit. None of that stuff is actual standards as far as I'm concerned. You are looking at systems that have the ability, you have electronics here. You have the ability to have standards. Why is it that you have all of these different connections, but you don't have any innovation going on? Because you don't have standards. One of the standards you could do is making it easier to do this. I talked about this yesterday in the little how to identify fluffy fucktards, and saying, look, if you are sitting there and telling the DIY guy, I don't want you doing that job because it's too dangerous for you, you have to come to me, you're an idiot. You are an absolute fucking idiot. if you're sitting there and you have a schedule of all your customers and it's full, and they come to you and say, hey, I need to do a job, and you're like, well, it's this much, and they go, well, I don't know if I can afford it, and I'll go check with somebody else, and you're just like, go ahead, out the door. You could care less because you know right behind them is 5 more people to give you a job. Then guess what? You're not competing. If you're not fighting for that customer, you're not competing. And fighting for that customer means fighting for all of them. You should be sitting there and saying, I don't have enough. I want more. Pull yourself up a fucking bowl of porridge and come out like Oliver saying, please, sir, may I have some more customers? What I'm coming up with here is an idea for you, is how you can do that, is get 1 million fucking customers. Now, the first part is, yeah, you need to do better standardization on this. This is not bad. It's not horrible. It's okay as far as a start. You have, if we look at this as an HVAC system, you have your blower. Mine could be considered upside down depending on who you're talking to. The blower's up here. Your heating system's here. AC's here. Yes, I had some booster fans added, but I'm not currently got them hooked up. But when you're looking at this, you should be able to look at it and say, okay, if something happened and went wrong, I should be able to very quickly, within 10 minutes, swap this out. I should be able to come in and in 10 minutes swap this out. That means including dealing with dual AC lines. Okay, one of the things I mentioned yesterday is if you have AC lines, you always sit there and say, oh, you have to have a professional do this shit. You have to have this. You have to have these gauges and all that great stuff. I've got the gauges and shit, and you shouldn't have to have them. If each of those lines, these 2 lines, and even the drain line here, operated like this. These are simple little valves. They're air tank valves, but they're no different than what you would see on the system here. If you have a union here, obviously not one like this, but a union that can be separated where you can just unscrew and separate, you could shut off that line. The amount of AC refrigerant that you're going to lose from disconnecting this between these 2 valves, that much refrigerant, that's not much at all, okay? So being able to sit there and do that with 2 lines and also the drain, and being able to just disconnect a couple of screws, grab the whole unit and pull it out. If you're able to do that and hot swap somebody's unit that fast, that's power, okay? That's something that you would be able to be awesome. And you're sitting there and telling me, oh, well, then the DIY guy could do it. Well, you know what? Don't worry about the DIY guy. You've got the Bill Gates guy. You've got every single other person out there that's too busy going to work doing their job, earning money to say, I don't want to do air conditioning. I don't want to do this and that and the other. So they're going to be the ones who come to get you. The other thing is, let's say you wanted to do a service where you were coming out and saying, hey, by the way, we can do a cleaning on your coils. Because one of the worst things that can happen for these systems is that the coil in here gets clogged up with dog hair, whatever. The filter went bad. It got knocked out of place. It got blown something. And the next thing you know, you're screwed. Okay? So what do you want to do? You're going to have to pull this thing out to clean it. Okay? So getting yourselves to the point where you have standards and you're able to pull these out individually is first. Second, you need to start treating all of the appliances in your house like a computer. You need to start thinking about these homes and saying, why do we not have smart homes? Because you've got all of the body parts of a smart home sitting here in your house right now, but you haven't provided them any control. And it's there. If you watch the previous videos, I said, how could you redo these boards to be amazing? And I mentioned before that there's one company that's trying to do a little bit of innovation, and I say they haven't done much because they only did something 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they took and they created one board. They tried to create a universal board, but it only covers about 200 boxes that are out there, and there are a couple thousand at least different ones, okay? And all they really did was take every board that operates exactly like one board, and they made a wire harness, because For one company, they basically use this same board, but this prong is over here, and this prong is over here, and this prong is over there. But they all operate the same. They all do the call for heat. They all have the same operations piece. They all have those different parts. And yes, I'm looking for my little schematics. They all have their sequence operations. And they all work the same. There's only one fucking program to run every single one of them. That's not innovation. That's not a whole bunch. That's kind of a baby step. But the fact that they didn't have a second board come out within 6 months, that's ridiculous. Okay? It means they're not doing it. It means they're not really trying. Okay? And they're taking their long time, which is why any single guy, this is the fantasy and dream, anyone in their garage could do this idea. Now, granted, it doesn't even take a lot of smarts on every individual. Okay, here's the other piece, is what you would need to do in order to do this, just to start creating a proper universal board, you'd need to get 3 people. 3 people, or at least 3 skill sets. If you have them all in the same person, that's great. But if you had 3 people with these skill sets, you'd be golden. What are they? Arduino, Android, and why did I just forget this? Okay. Man, I've pulled a bonehead. It's Arduino, Android, and I was going to say Python, but that's not even it. Okay. Oh, and an HVAC guy. Duh. The guy who knows everything on these systems. As far as what's outside your thing, it's Android and Arduino, which is what I was concentrating on. The other guy you need is whoever's familiar with these systems. So when it comes to the washer and dryer, you need somebody who specializes in those things and knows how they work. If you have the HVAC guy, you need the HVAC guy. But if you have the Arduino and you have the Android guy, you can turn just about the whole house into a smart house, and you can do it cheap as dirt, and people will pay you to upgrade them. Okay? I'm going to throw you the big idea here for a second. I want you to think about this for a second. This is a Fire Stick and remote. They came out 10 fucking years ago. You pay $20 and you get a Fire Stick and a remote. And what's on this Fire Stick? Android. A specialized version of it for Amazon. They have the Google Chromecast version. They have the Roku version. It's the same shit, just somebody picked a different language or made a different interface. That's all it is. But what you have here is serious operating system ability of providing an interface to individuals. Okay? And then you have this. This is the remote. This is a simple Arduino board. Okay? It's a simple board that has buttons for sending communication. It has Bluetooth on it. It could have any number. It's got IR. It's got any number of things. And what Arduino is basically the baby steps of how to build a board. If you've ever been in, say, high school and you took geometry, they have this really awesome thing they love to do, and my sisters hated it. It was called proofs. And I'll show you a quick one just to give the example. Is you'd be sitting in class. Yes, I got the blackboard up. You'd be sitting in class and they would say, okay, we want you to prove that this angle and this angle are the same. And they'd show you crossed lines. And they'd say, okay, how do you know that this angle and this angle is the same? And you say, well, this is a line, so this has to be 180. And if this is 180, then this angle right here is, say, x minus 180. So this is 180 minus x. Well, if this is x and this is 180, then this too also has to be 180 minus x. So you know these are the same. Well, once you proved that, you didn't have to prove it again. You could just say opposing angles are the same, right? Oh, well, you know that. Okay, it's the same thing with Arduino. What you're doing with Arduino is they give you a little board with communication capability of talking to the board, and you sit there and you play with diodes and resistors and relays, and you put them into the board and you find a configuration and you go, ooh, I figured out how to do something. And once you figured it out, it goes into the everybody knows field because it gets shared. There's this funny thing about programming, and it's the same thing with Arduino. Nobody invented the word donde. Nobody invented the word estás. Not that we know, that we can't figure it out. We have no idea. It was done a million years ago. Nobody knows who invented the word el baño. They don't. Nobody knows who was the first person in the world to ever say, donde está el baño? But everybody says it. All kinds of people say it. Why? Because it's been copied and pasted throughout time. And this is what happens with Arduino. It's what happens with programming. You get on a programmer board and you just go, dudes, I need to do this thing where I do this. And you're going to have 40 people say, oh, I've done it this way, but it has these plus and minuses. Oh, I did it this way and it has these plus and minuses. And you're going to have all these different ways. You can literally just sit there, type in, for example, Arduino and motion sensor. Motion sensor. You want to set up a Halloween thing for motion sensing. I've done it myself about a million times. You set up little motion sensors and they'll say, grab one of these, grab a relay. Now you do this. Then you hook up the power to here, 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 and it goes. Well, once you figured out how to do that, you'll also find not only are there videos on how to make one from scratch and the programming code that you might need to put in what's called a PLC, a program logic chip. So if it needed a program to run, firmware, okay, just software for the actual hardware, okay, they would have that as well. But you're going to find 1,000 fuckers who have already built them, manufactured them, and sell them. So what do? If you want to build a specialized board, you go, okay, I need a sensor that does this, I need a sensor that does this, I need a thing that does this, and I need a thing that does this. They're going to give you the sensor that goes over somewhere in the thing, and then they give you the board that has it and the code. So all you're doing is acting like you're plugging Legos together. That's all it is. Now, here's where it comes back to talk to you about the fact that you don't have to have an IQ of higher than 85. My son is 11 years old, going to 6th grade. We talked to the teachers. We went over to the middle school yesterday. It was really exciting. We sat down with one of his teachers that he's going to have, and it's he's taking basically a learning computer aid class. You know what one of his assignments is? It's to build a computer board like that, not that one specifically, but a computer board like that, including all the goddamn code, and it's supposed to take about 2 weeks. Listen to me for a second. 5 days a week, 1 hour a day in class, he's going to build that. A 6th grader is. So when I tell you, you don't have to have an IQ higher than 85 to actually do this whole idea, guess what? You don't. You just have to have the initiative and the gumption to be able to do it. That's all you need. All right? You don't have to be a genius. This is stuff that's been going out. For God's sake, here, do this. Do this. If you're wanting to know what Arduino is and how easy it could be to use, okay, go look up. It's called MakerBot, or you'll call it MBot. Go on Amazon. Just search MBot or Maker MBot, okay? And what you're going to find is these basically it's a robot kit. It's like a little Lego kit that they give you, but it's got boards in it. It's got wires, it's got wheels, it's got everything to make a robot and a USB connection to the board, okay, and software. And the software is translation software. So the kid, eight in the 8 years old, it's rated for 8 years and above. And you just sit there and say, okay, in the thing, it's Arduino, just kind of simplified for them and made into a fun robot so that they get interested in it. Okay? But they sit there and they program it, and it translates it straight over to Python, and then you install it, download it to the chip on the robot, and he does the thing. He'll follow a line, okay? You stick it down, and it's sensing, it's doing a light sensor for the dark and light of the line, and it follows the line. And you program it and tell it how to do that. These are 8-year-olds that are being taught how to do this shit, okay? I can tell you right now, there's going to be at least 3,000 reviews on it. It's going to sit there and say something like there was 600 of them sold last month alone. I want you to think about that. 600 Gen Alphas. Fuck the Zoomers. Forget the Zoomers. Forget the Millennials. Think about the Alphas. The Alphas are going to come in and they're going to replace every single one of you. Every single one of you are going to be sitting there going, I played Legos when I was 5, but when I was 6, I played with robots. Okay? And I programmed those robots. Yeah. They've got these kids that young doing programming, and they're having a blast. They are. They've simplified it. Just like you should have simplified these furnaces. You can simplify this stuff that much, and you want to. You want it to be that easy. Because if it's that easy, then your expertise is much, much, much higher and more valuable because you know the details of everything going in. So, let's see here. Actually, what's the next piece we need to talk about? All right. Once you get that idea that you have an Android and a Fire Stick, okay, I want you to think about this. Instead of just an Android Fire Stick, that furnace is pretty much the heart of every house. It is. It's the heart of the home. If you can do laundry somewhere else, you can wash dishes by hand, but if you don't have a furnace, you're really screwed, okay? So aside from having fresh water and being able to flush a toilet, that furnace is your home, okay? There's no real interface for people when it comes to water other than just flick a faucet on. There's nothing there to deal with. But for the furnace, that thermostat is, everybody's accustomed to it. Everybody knows it. That they see and they go, that's the heart, okay? And you should keep it that way. Here's what you can do. A simple tablet. You could buy thermostats. The old thermostats you used to get, they were like $80. You could still end up paying $150 for a thermostat. It's ridiculous, okay? You can buy a little tablet. This is a phone, but I'm using it as an example because a 7-inch tablet is only just slightly bigger. If you had an Android, just think of it as just basic Android. Take all of the cell phone technology, the camera, all that other bullshit out of it. All you have on here is it's reading thermostat, but this has your Bluetooth on it. This has your Wi-Fi on it. Now, would you need Wi-Fi in your heater and your air conditioning unit outside? No, those would be the equivalent of a remote, an Arduino board that's just for doing this. It's an appendage of this heart. It goes out, and on that board, you're able to do certain things. And I'm going to get into some details on what you should have on that board and be able to do with it. But to start with, we have this. So here, right now, okay, right now on my cell phone, I can grab it, pull up an application that has a window air conditioner. Yes, I'm old, I am married, and I have a wife who demands that we be capable of raising and lowering temperatures to the Antarctic freezing and hell's heating at any moment, period. So I have an individual heater and air conditioner for that room, just for that room, so she can do that. Okay? But I can turn it on sitting right here. I can just turn the app on, go turn the AC on, and it's on. Not only that, but I can see whether it's on. I can see whether it's been running in eco mode, and it's going to tell me how much electricity it's been using. Think about that for a second. The more power that you build into those things, the Arduino sensors are so cheap, and it is so cheap to have sensors. The fact that these things are so stupid is ridiculous. Even in the newest systems, okay? You don't have anything. Here's where the big idea gets really big. Okay? And we're going to skip over some of the smaller ideas that are coming. I mentioned mentioned this before. Why do we not have a single pair? Why do we not have a single pair of wires per limit switch, per vacuum sensor? It's 2 wires. You're getting a single continuity test. On an Arduino board, you get those things for freaking pennies, okay? To program it up, to sit there and say, I need to know whether every one of these is running. And on top of that, if one of them fails, I know exactly which ones failed. Not only would you know that, but then you could start adding other sensors in for cheap. You could have an airflow test. They have everything from altimeters for flying around in the air to water sensors. They have temp sensors. They have humidity sensors. They have bad air sensors, so they can pick up things like sulfides and benzene. If you have that kind of stuff, they have smoke that they can detect. All of those sensors going into a single board. This board right here alone, I'm going to show you this. This is the programming. Where'd I get it? Out of the manual. It's right here. It's 2 fucking pages. Do you know how much a page of text is in the world of computing? 1 page of text is 1K. That means that you would have to have an entire ream of paper. 1 ream of paper is 500K. Two reams of paper. This is 1 meg. 1 meg. Now I want you to imagine 100, 200 reams of paper. 200 reams of paper to get to 2 meg. You're sitting there saying, okay, well, I've got to get, how do I get to a gigabyte? You're talking about stacks and stacks of pages. I'm sitting here trying to impress upon you how pathetically stupid the amount of programming this is. A BIOS is 384 pages limited. You're talking about a board that has the IQ of 2 pages of paper. That's it. That's it. You're talking about a board that when you talk about microelectronics and start getting into integrated circuits like this, which have capacitors. Look at this. Look at all the capacitors. They even have the miniature capacitors in here. Diodes, ICs, everything. This board, this is a video card. I paid $50 for it. Years ago. $50. This is like a 1650 video card from NVIDIA. The amount of power you need, the amount of computing power you need to run this takes about that much of a card right here, just to do what's already there. This is not difficult stuff to do. And with Arduino, you could literally just say, I want to add this on. I want to add this on. When it comes to sensors, you need more than what you have. So building a universal board is more than just saying, oh, well, let's find all the boards that work a certain way. Every once in a while, I get an update on my Fire Stick. And every once in a while, I get an update for the remote. You mean that I could take a standardized motherboard for all heaters? You build a single motherboard that goes into every heater, has every possible port on it. We've got IDE, SATA, all the different things you might come across in a computer on this board. You can put this into any fucking computer and it'll do the job. And it's a highly intense. Oh, sure, you want to have a faster one because you're going to be doing gaming. But you don't need something that's faster for heating. You don't need one that does all this other stuff. Not only that, but there are expansion slots on this thing. You mean you could put a board in here that even if you had all of these different things hooked up. You could put another board on here that had even additional slots because they came up with some new type of sensor that we didn't even think about when we came up with this board. You should have airspeed sensors so that you know whether the airflow is going through. If you had an airflow sensor at the top and the bottom, you would be able to know whether or not the filter was clogged. You would know whether or not, if you had a sensor, here's one for you. I'm going to run you through a little walkthrough of technology on what you might have to occur. Inside the unit in here, outside, you have a huge capacitor for starting up those motors, right? The blower motor, huge capacitors on those things. Not the worst in the world, not the hugest you've ever seen in the world, but they're pretty big, okay? Every single one of those boards could have this. And I hear what you're saying. Peter, that's a Klein. Those things are $80. Yeah, and it's handheld, goes like this, and I can chuck it across the room and it's not going to break. We're talking about a chip that goes onto that board that takes up about that much space. Yeah, they have multimeters. Do a fucking search on Google. Arduino multimeter, including capacitance, okay? It's not only going to come up with videos on how to make the board from scratch, but it's going to have boards for sale for $4 retail price. By the way, when I mention pricing on any of this stuff, you need to remember that yes, retail is marked up ×3 from the manufacturers. So the manufacturer's cost, the cost that I'm talking that you'd have to do, has been marked up ×3 to get to the retailer, ×3 to get to the customer. Yeah. So if I tell you it's $2, it's at bare minimum, or at the most expensive, 20 cents. And most likely a lot cheaper than that because the manufacturers are going to be dealing in bulk. So they're paying even less. When you're dealing with, say, the capacitors in here, and you're going to run a capacitance, every single issue that can come up, you can solve. You don't have a lot of high-tech stuff in here. You don't have a lot of different sensors going on. So it's not hard to build something that says, run a diagnostic with the multimeter and say, check this thing, check this thing, check this thing, and then set it up on a schedule once a week. And once a week, you're running a schedule. You're running that diagnostic. And once a week, it's logging that diagnostic. So you know that, yeah, it tested the ohms on each of the coils in the motor. It tested the capacitor. Peter, how do you test a capacitor? Those things get filled with energy. You double hook up the relays. This is a double throw, double pull, double throw relay, and you do 2 of them. The way a double throw, double pull works, if I can find my pieces of chalk here, okay, is it looks like this. You have a pull and you have a throw from it, okay? And the way it works is it's going to look something like this. All right? This is, say, connected to the system. When you turn on the relay, it's going to snap to the other. And all you're doing is supplying power, and when you give it power, it energizes a coil, and the magnet pulls it over and it throws both. So 2 pulls for 2 wires and 2 throws happening at the same time. So you have a coil in there. It has 2 poles. And by the way, there are triple throws as well, okay? Because there are some capacitors that have 3 poles, and you want to be able to test all of them. Well, what you do is you double up the poles. So you have one relay going into another. Well, how do you make that capacitor safe? You drop a screwdriver on the poles, right? You jam the screwdriver on the tip, don't touch it, you just, okay, drained it all out, right? Well, you have these 2 set to short it out. Actually, let's say that that's connected to, we're going to do this backwards here. Okay, so this is connected to the machine. Here's your pole, It's thrown to one side, thrown to the other. This goes to the multimeter chip on your board. You're going to switch to here. So when you activate the first relay, it goes to here, shorts it out. It's just like shoving the screwdriver on, and you leave it on for, say, 2-3 seconds. Then you click it back. This one is being used as a double throw as well, but this pole right here isn't connected to the chip. It's connected to nothing. It's dead nothing. So when it's this way, the capacitor just has 2 extra wires sitting on it. Might as well have little wire nuts on the end. It's not connected to anything. Comes in, comes down, not connected to anything. You ground it out, put it back to connection, not connected, then you activate this one, and now it's connected to the multimeter. And you don't blow out your multimeter chip. There are simple ways of setting things like this up so that you can make sure each of the sensors are safe and then test them. You have every single one of these with a wire that comes into the system, and you use relays that go from operation to test. Operation, relay, test. Now you've got everything being operated and tested. You should be able to sit there and run that and run a diagnostic and have all that data saved. Where? On the, all right, but having them pass it to the Fire Stick Android thermostat controller. So your Android controller at the thermostat is now saving all that data. The main app on here that runs in the face, that's your thermostat, and it's going to do thermostat stuff. But you can have other apps on here, such as the window AC upstairs, such as the washer, the dryer. Even from another make or model, you can have from other manufacturers on this unit. And what that can do is give you the ability to retrieve all the log files into here. Okay? People rely on these. Forget the DIY guy. You're thinking about grandma who needs to know that her stuff is going to be running all the time. The guy who's working as an engineer in his wife's home, she's pregnant and she needs to be able to be comfortable, but you need to make sure that the house is running, but he's busy off working, trying to do his thing. He doesn't have time to read up on HVAC and do this stuff. The guy doesn't even have a chance to change his filters. Here comes big idea. What if one of the apps on that thermostat that is connected to every single board in the house, which has now been standardized because you have a motherboard for the heater that has a connection for every possible configuration and a program that can be installed from here. Oh, you have the Lennox 80MG? Download the firmware to the remote. I get firmware updates on this remote all the time. What would be so hard of saying, well, I put it into here, we need to have the run operation, which consists of 2 pages of code, firmware loaded to there. We've been doing remote firmware updates like crazy. It's easy. It's secure. It's fine. Communication between the furnace and the thermostat, you're already hardwired with 4 wires. HVAC style, which means really heavy core wire. You're not going to have to worry about drop-offs or anything. So where is the Wi-Fi connection? That's in the house. And your Wi-Fi is hooked up to everything, okay? Every unit can be Wi-Fi and coming back to your thermostat relay, your home system. Of course, you can also have those controls additionally on your phones so that you can do those, but you have one for the house that keeps track of the house. Turn this off again. It's holding the power. Once you start doing stuff like that, you come out to a guy and say, look, you've got a furnace that's going to last you 100 years. The problem is it's not set up to last 100 years. It really could. But you know what? If I give you this new motherboard and I go in there to fix it, and every time you go out to fix somebody, you go, do you want to come up to the 20th century? Because we can smart home your entire house real quick. We can take this that could fail at any time during the summer. It fails. Winter, coldest week of the month or the year, fails. When does it die? Then. But you, with your app on here, are now retrieving all the logs, getting the statuses, finding out what the logs say, getting you the reports to say, hey, by the way, the farads on the capacitor outside on the AC unit, they're slowly going out of spec. This is indicative of it going to be failing in, say, 4 months. You can notify the customer about the need of a repair and give them the options. But here's the thing. You're dealing with something in a house. We have ADT. What's ADT? ADT is an alarm security system. It's a physical security system to provide for physical security. The big idea is this: home operations security. You got me, Haas? Home operation security. You provide, by a monthly subscription, just like you would for Netflix or ADT, a subscription service that says, you know what, we're going to retrieve the logs from here and we're going to make sure that we know when one of your things is going to fail. As part of this service that you're going to pay 10, 12 bucks a month, okay, so 120 to 150 bucks a year, what we're going to do is we're going to have a kid roaming the neighborhood dealing with thousands of houses a day, or dealing with, 50 houses a day or 10 houses a day. How many places does an Amazon truck stop? How many places does it drop off a day? That's how many customers he could be dealing with, because stopping at a customer's house to do a quick update on their systems could be that quick if you had properly motivated the manufacturers to get these things easier. For example, you sit there and say, well, you know what? We're going to come out 4 times a year. The first time we come out, we're going to replace the filter in your furnace. And we're going to flush out your water heater. So we'll bring a 5-gallon bucket. We'll dump 5 waters. We're going to check your TMP. And that's one of the first visits. 3 months later, we're going to come out again. You know what we're going to do? We're going to replace the furnace filter again. But this time, we're going to run one of those little whirly-birdie things down the damn vent for the dryer. We're going to clean your dryer out once a year. The next time we come out, the third time you come out, you know what you do? You come out, you take the filter out of the washer, because there's a little filter, just like there's a filter in the dishwashers now. You're going to replace the water filter in the fridge. And you're going to do a basic check of all these devices. Every time he goes out, he does some menial 20-point check that you're going to do for these guys. You're going to have him go out with a little spray bottle of soapy water, and you're going to spray the gas lines to make sure that they're still not leaking. You're going to go over here, look for any leaks. He's just going to go in the house. He's going to do a couple of swap outs, and he's going to go. And you know what? On top of that, if you had customers that you were coming back every month, like I said, we're going to borrow from everybody. ADT, diaper services. Stop using disposable filters on those. Start using the reusable ones, but they're yours. So instead of popping $5 a filter, you're spending 20 bucks and then just take it out and have it go back. You grab a high school kid, you work with the schools and you say, hey, get me a high school kid that wants to learn about plumbing and HVAC. And what we're going to do is we're going to teach him the ropes, but we're going to pay him a minimum wage. Okay? He comes in, he's already going to school all day. So when's he home? In the late afternoons to evenings and on the weekends. Perfect time when everybody else is more likely to be home so that he could stop by to do a quick look at the stuff. And if not, the homeowner can provide a little piece. You can do everything from little cams on him. Everybody's getting Ring cameras also. So you've got secure type interfaces with the public. You do your background checks, obviously. But you have all that stuff go through. The kid comes out. You're paying somebody to just come out here and do those checks. But the 4th time you have them come out, You have somebody go through all the logs to make sure. You have them come out and you say, okay, we've done this, we did this, we did this. And by the way, you know, we have these upsells. You know what we could do? We could clean out your AC coils. Not just the ones outside, but the ones inside. If you want us to do that, we could do it. There's a nice little chemical. I know you guys HVAC know about it. We use the same chemical on cars sometimes too, to clean out the coils. Okay? But it's really kind of a bitch. If you look at my setup, you'll notice I have a little wood panel down there. That's because I cut it out. Why? Because I like to clean the damn thing and I like to do a really good job. So what did I do? I gave myself an access panel so I could put a little plastic tarp underneath it, spray it down with the chemical water, then I could rinse it off, and then I could take the tarp out. I bought some of these just so that you could see, but why wouldn't you have these guys updating these systems so that not only could you just hit a couple of valves, disconnect the union, and pull it out, because they're installed on drawer rails. Why wouldn't you put them on drawer rails? They're rated for the weight. You could sit there and just pull it out, just disconnect, pull it out. It takes you 4 minutes to do a complete cleaning on this. How much does that normally cost? How much does it usually take you to do that? And you had a high schooler do it. Why? Because all he's got to do is do this, and go. Oh. Now, even if you're not able to do all of this neat and fancy stuff at first because they have an older system and they haven't upgraded these things, you can start them off by saying, hey, we can bring you up to speed by just bringing you in with getting a new motherboard, getting a set of wires and hooking it up to every single limit switch individually. Okay? Your Arduino guy, he's going to have to sit there and say, okay, I can put every single port that you're talking about. You've got the HVAC guy saying you need all of these ports for this machine. Okay, what else? Oh, this machine has these ports and they're not the same as these ones. Okay, do we have any other new ports on another one? Just keep bringing all the pages up. The HVAC guy is bringing out the manuals. And in every single one of the manuals, he even has the programming for you. He can lay it out right there for the Arduino guy and start putting it up. And what is this? This is basically the drivers to run that. So then you've got your Google guy, or your Android guy, sorry. And your Android guy is building the apps and the interface for the operating system that goes in and starts tracking. He starts pulling this stuff. Just being a company that could provide that as a service, an upgraded motherboard that actually worked in any system. Here's something for you. The first thing to start off with when you do that would be a power supply. Those microchip boards, they're going to be running on 3.3, 5 volt, 12, maybe even have some latent 24 volts still hanging around to the system. Plus you've got the 110 for the main pieces like the blower and things, or the 220, which is outside. They have power modules. They're about the size of, say, about that long, about this big, about this fat, okay? So if you had one of these that was maybe twice as fat, twice as tall, it would look about that big. And on top of that, you could do something that even the computer guys haven't done yet. You could give them surge protection right to the furnace, on a power supply, on any appliance. Any computer out there, you can buy a power supply and it's going to work on all of them. The most you're going to have to look for is to see if it has the newest extra power cords for something, but a lot of the power supplies are actually coming out with a new piece. But for these, all you got to do is make sure that they have those 5 pieces of power. You put a lot of these things are hardwired, so you just stick something like that. What is this? This is the nice little, what do they call these things again? A little snap-on wire. You can put that, or hell, you could use the same ones as an outlet for all I give a shit, as long as it was rated for 12 gauge, maybe some 10 gauge if you're dealing with the 220 for the dryer. You could have two universal power supplies, one for washers and outside so it could handle the higher power, but I don't think you would need to, okay? Because most of the power supplies that they have that'll do the step down, it'll cover pretty much all the voltages, including 220 or 110. Doesn't matter which one's the input. And it'll step it down, it'll regulate it. You'll have surge protection and all those pieces that you can build into a single power supply. And you don't have to build that. You could call Corsair. You could call Thermaltake or any number one of the guys who are already building power supplies for computers, and they'll be like, a universal power supply for all appliances, including furnaces and AC units? Oh, hell yeah. We'll build those. But you've got to be pushing standards. You've got to be pushing the industry to have standards. And if you think that you're pushing standards by saying, oh, we got to have this and that, those are safety regulations. That's what those are. Those are not standards. Okay? When you tell me that you have to use a specific type of Freon, or you have to use a specific type of cooling agent in the lines, okay, you're barely scraping the edge of what could be a standard. Okay? So, on all the ideas that you could have, you literally could be in a situation where now your devices are smart enough. Built with the little multimeter agent, you could check and make sure you knew exactly which part was out. You would know why. You would know beforehand that other parts would be going out. Again, you could, every week, you could shut down and run through a test on the wires on the coils for the motor. You start getting more and more resistance. You start getting closer and closer, maybe not a short, but you're starting to get more stuff. Washing machines have a tachometer. They use it to make sure they know it's usually part of the motor transmission where they shift to about a couple of gears. It works like almost like a bike. And that way the motor, the barrel will spin at low, medium, and high. And they have a tachometer that measures it to make sure it's spinning at a good speed, and otherwise then it starts reporting problems. That tachometer can be also used in here to sit there and say, okay, the blower is not running at a certain speed. This fan is not running. One of the things that happens with the outside units is the fans, let's say the capacitor goes out and the fan stops spinning, but the compressor keeps pumping and then it burns up. So not only do you lose the capacitor, the fan keeps trying to run and it burns out the fan motor. The fan doesn't run and it's the compressor blows up, and the next thing you know, that's a seriously huge costing problem. Okay, I've had the problem. I've sat in there and had the capacitor go out and lose a motor and go, whew, okay, that the compressor was still good. All right, you can get lucky. All right, but a lot of times you won't. But if you had extra sensors and you had a motherboard that had the ability to expand and add more sensors, you could be providing additional services, upgrades, upsells to existing customers. Okay? And doing it in such a standardized way that no, you have the main guy in charge of that system saying, hey, I'm taking care of every customer in a city. There's 40,000 people. Even if you had just 1% of those, 4,000, paying you $150 a year. That's a lot of money. And that's a lot of money that can be coming in. And that's only if you had 1%. What if you had 5%? Of a city, that's it. What if you were ADT and you had regional outlets? What if you got even bigger than that? You can take this idea and you could get extraordinarily huge. There's so much that you can do for the innovation on these things, and it's easy. If you want to start it with something, if IMC or whatever their name was, I can't remember right this second, actually was serious about putting in a new control board, okay? $100 price point isn't the worst thing in the world as a retail price for the end user. But you should have something better than just putting in a universal board. You should have something where you say, look, not only do we give you the universal board and the wire harnesses that connect you to it, it should be capable of working on any furnace. You should have an updated smart thermostat, not some crap ass thing that we have today. What is that? It's a timer. It's a $10 timer with a 2 cent or 20 cent, excuse me, thermocouple. You can buy a K class or a K type thermocouple for frickin' 20 cents. There's no reason why they wouldn't be able to do this. And by the way, one of the things that you would do with your thermostat little tablet is it would attach to the wall where the thermostat goes, but it would still have the battery on it and it would be charged, and you could have it actually charged from in here so that the universal power supply was running back to there and the battery in here was what was getting charged. And then a lot of the thermostats, you could have it so that they could take this off and walk away and go wherever they wanted to go within the system or within the house, doing whatever they want if they didn't have their phone. But the wall piece that they connect to, that's where the thermocouple is. Okay, it's basically a charger and a thermocouple and a communication click for wired connectivity to all of the units that are around. Okay, this would be where you had things like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and everything, because that's inside your house and that's able to communicate with everything else. So this would be able to communicate to there. Meanwhile, you're sitting there with a Bluetooth connection or a Wi-Fi connection to the thermostat, okay, as well as a wired connection to the thermostat. So this connects directly to the wall, hardwire connected to your furnace and inside. You could start upgrading and providing additional sensors. The idea that you'd be able to provide sensors for any single type of device out there and be able to warn them, being able to tell people, hey, by the way, we're showing a failure on the capacitor in the thing, and or you need a new capacitor. We can replace it at our next stop when we're coming out, and we could do that for $50. Why? Because it's a $5 thing, and you can send numbnuts out there to do it in 2 seconds. You know exactly what's going on. But if we get called out to replace it, we can come right now to replace it, and it will be, say, $200. You're going to come out, replace it right now today outside your normal every 3 month visit. If they want to wait for the 3 month and take a chance, it's going to be that. If you have to call them, they might have to wait, and then it's going to be the $200. Or you can do it right now for the $200. Or you can give them the option of, hey, here's the part, you can order it, do yourself. Or, thanks anyway, I'll get the part myself. Any one of those, and just give them the option so that you provide them a notification saying, hey, we noticed this, we're recommending that replacement, this is what it would cost for us to do it, but if you're going to do it yourself, do it. If somebody's willing to pay you to do this kind of service, pretty much guaranteed they're going to be willing to pay you to do the other. Now, granted, your DIY guy, he's going to want to do this stuff himself. But guess what? If you're making boards and universal boards, he's still going to be buying a board from you. He's still going to be buying that power supply. He's still going to be buying that stuff and then upgrading his system. There is no reason why, when something this powerful, dual core processing in this small of a thing, was released 10 years ago, and you still have a board that has no more power than a dollar store calculator. They're not the same, but they have the same amount of processing power. They have the same amount of money's worth of parts in them. Matter of fact, the calculator might be more intelligent than the furnace boards right now. And the new ones, they're not much better. Oh, it tells you that, oh, they have this new vacuum sensor that does this. Great. Do you have a way of telling me whether or not that vacuum sensor's failed? Do you have a way of telling me whether or not this has failed? Can you tell me what the airspeed in my furnace has been from the blower over, just a once a week diagnostic run just to do a checkup? Can you show me what the airspeed's been over the last year? Oh, your airspeed's been slowly going down. Your power usage for the blower has been going up. That sounds like the coils are starting to wear down. You may want to be concerned based on different types of motors. You'd be able to tell when they're going to fail. There's all kinds of parts of that. So, yeah. I think I've covered just about most of it, if not all. But yeah. Simple relay systems like this is a relay. You can have hot swap relays like this where they could punch it in the board, pull it out. If you're worried on certain relays that might fail or they're likely to fail, they have relays with fuses and they have relays that pull out just like in your car and you can replace them. But giving somebody the ability to sit there and say, you know what, we're going to do the maintenance for you. They have these stories about the kid who went around the neighborhood and said, yeah, just pay me $2 a week and or $2 a month and I'll take your garbage cans down every week. And the next thing you know, the kid's making thousands of dollars because he goes down the entire area just pulling a garbage can to the curb. You could be pulling in every single customer, doing an upgrade, pulling in that customer. And now, every time you get something going wrong, you're able to tell the customer and they're looking at you and going, oh, that's these guys. That's Pacific Northwest Home Operations Security. My house is secure. My wife and kids are taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. I can go to work and do my job, make money that I do with my skill, and I can rely on them to do theirs. These are easy things, okay? If you can get yourself an Arduino guy, get yourself somebody who knows Android, and get yourself somebody who's skilled in HVAC, you could start by making that board right there. There's companies both in China, there's companies here in the United States that'll print your PCB. And like I said, the programs for doing this, they're teaching 6th graders to use the programs that take all the Arduino boards, plug them into a piece, and then they fit it into a single board. So it's not hard for you to pick this up. It's going to be quite easy for you to do it if you did. Why am I not doing it? Because, well, I spend every single day with my family. I already won the game. I make more than I spend every month, and I get to spend every day with my family. But I don't like the idea of my kid going off into a world with a bunch of people that are making it go to hell because they're not competing. So I'll throw some stuff out there for you. Enjoy. I hope you liked it. Give me some feedback. Use the comments section. Try to find another guy who can help with your skill set. Let's see you guys innovate. Let's see you guys advance. Start competing, boys. It's good for you.